Hey everybody, in this video we're going to talk about 5 places that you might want to consider if you're moving to Indianapolis or just the area, but you don't want a really fast lifestyle. Not that Indianapolis is very fast, but of course it's a bigger city, so it's going to have some bigger city things to deal with. But if you want to be in a place that's kind of self-contained, not very big, and a little slower paced, but still have access to everything that you want, like Indianapolis or grocery stores or anything else that you might need. So we're going to go through 5 places that you might want to consider. So stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm Jason Compton with the Compton Home Group. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living in Indianapolis or any of the surrounding metro, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap the little bell so you're notified every time we do a new video each and every week. Now we get reach outs from people all over the country with a huge variety of questions about Indianapolis, the surrounding metro, places like we're going to talk about here today, just places that have a little slower lifestyle than what you might have in the city itself. So if you have questions at all, then don't hesitate to reach out any ways you know how. We'll always have your back with those questions, and we'll certainly have your back when it comes time for you to make your move to the Indy Metro. So we're talking about 5 places that are a little bit slower. Like I said, I mean, Indianapolis it's in the Midwest, so it's not, other than Chicago, really all that fast paced. But if you live in the city, Indianapolis, or if you live in a place like Fishers or Carmel, which are also very big. Carmel's a little over 100,000 people. Fishers is close to that, so they're pretty good-sized cities by themselves, but very popular suburbs on the north side of Indianapolis, and they all have about the same density, so they're gonna feel the same. Not exactly a super fast lifestyle, but deal with traffic and people and just the general congestion that you might find from time to time in a bigger city. So this video is about some places that are a little outside that. So you want to live in a place that's a little smaller, a little quieter, but you don't want to live way out in rural Indiana where it feels like you're just in the middle of nowhere, or maybe you are in the middle of nowhere and you're a 30-minute drive to anything. So these would be places that are still close to some kind of shopping. It may not necessarily be Saks Fifth Avenue or somewhere super high-end like you'd find up at Keystone Mall on the north side of Indianapolis, or even some of the higher end you might find in downtown Indianapolis, but you're close to some. You're certainly close to grocery stores, maybe a Home Depot or something like that, Lowe's, that you might need for lumber or any tools or anything, but you're not far from Indianapolis either, so you're a pretty easy drive to get into the city if you need it. But where you're living, it just feels a little bit smaller, maybe a little closer knit, and more of that small town vibe. So these are just some places that you might want to keep in mind because I feel like they have kind of what I'm talking about here, that exact feeling. So number 1, I would say, and this unfortunately is the most expensive place really to live around Indianapolis, but it'd be Zionsville. Now Zionsville is a town all its own. It's not quite 30,000 people, a little bit under that, but Zionsville, there's a reason why it's expensive. It is really nice, has a lot of really nice homes, and then the downtown scene, the downtown area of Zionsville is very small, but it is super charming and super unique. When you go up and down Main Street, Brick Street, and you have all kinds of little shops and restaurants lining the street, and it's a place that's kind of happening almost all the time. The only time where nobody's really out on that street is if the weather is absolutely awful, like in a driving rainstorm, or if it's super snowy or something like that in the winter. But pretty much all year long, you're gonna find people walking around down in that particular area. But Zionsville, it is small, and it's been pretty small for a long time, and this is kind of the way people like it. And it's geographically situated in a slightly odd place. It is not difficult to get from Zionsville to Indianapolis using I-65 or Michigan Road on the east side, but when you're in Zionsville, in the downtown area, and maybe a little bit further north in Zionsville, it's, I wouldn't say difficult to get around, but there aren't a lot of direct routes from one side to the other. So there's a creek that runs through Zionsville. It's Eagle Creek, and you can't just cross that creek anywhere at all. So you've just got a couple of points where you can get from the east side to the west side or the west side to the east side, and that makes Zionsville a little bit more exclusive geographically, and I'm not going to call it isolated, but gives you that feel that, okay, Zionsville's up here in this unique spot geographically, and it's kind of cozy up here. And so it prevents a lot of that really big city feel and a lot of the density that you might find in some other places. And Zionsville has everything that you're ever going to need. I mean, if you want a Starbucks, they've got Starbucks there. If you want a grocery store, there are plenty of grocery stores. If you need a hardware store, Lowe's or something like that, they've got it. You've got interstate access. You've got all that really close by, just a few minutes away from pretty much everywhere you live in Zionsville. But you're going to be afforded that feel that maybe it doesn't seem like you're super close to all of that. So it's a cool place, and that's one of the big reasons. Of course, some others that people really love Zionsville, lots and lots of reasons too, but they like that feel that it has. It does make it a little bit warmer and tighter knit feel when living in a place like that. Now, swinging over to the west side, another suburb that I think has that feel and feels very residential. It's very quiet for the most part, and has been highly rated for years, really across the country. It's been in the top 20 places to live in the country at least once, if not more than that. And that would be Avon, Indiana. So they have some great parks in Avon. Again, not a very big place. Avon has a little under 18,000 people, maybe really, really close to that. So definitely not as big as Zionsville is, but that's really quite all right. There's new construction in Avon and it is growing, but it's not growing at a gangbusters pace, just absolutely exploding like a couple of the other suburbs are, especially up on the north side. But Avon has plenty of commercial stuff just going right through the center of it, which is US 36 Rockville Road. I mean, that is as commercial as it gets. So you got everything you could ever want right along that road. But off to the south of it, off to the north of it, and when you get a little bit further west in Avon, further away from Indianapolis, you start to get the feel that you're further away from Indianapolis and further away from the hustle of what's going on there on US 36. And that's why people, at least one of them, why people like Avon so much. Because you can get away from it and make it so it doesn't feel like you're really close to just a lot of that noise. People are really, really in love with Avon for the people who live there, definitely. And we have a lot of people that want to live in Avon for those reasons. The schools are fantastic there too. They're super highly rated. They've got plenty of other things going on there in Avon that make it a great place, but it's another one that's going to give you that feel that you're a little away, but not too far from anything that you're possibly going to need. Number 3, the third one, is really right next door to Avon. Just to the north, you have Brownsburg, Indiana. Now this one's a little bit bigger. It rivals Zionsville in its size, but still not 30,000 people. So still small enough to feel kind of like a small town and far enough away from Indianapolis, but also close enough to Indianapolis. You've got I-74, which runs across the north side of Brownsburg, so it makes it very, very easy to get to Indianapolis using that. Plus you've also got 136, which runs straight through Brownsburg and can be a pretty easy way to get to Indianapolis as well. It's also called Crawfordsville Road, so really, really easy access from 465 that surrounds Indianapolis. Get off there to get into Brownsburg, or of course I-74. So Brownsburg, again, highly rated schools there, super quiet, but you got everything that you need as far as the major type of shopping, like grocery stores, department stores, things like that, all very close to Brownsburg and in that particular area. But one of the reasons I like Brownsburg so much is that it is super close to Eagle Creek Park. So if you go to Eagle Creek Park, it's one of the biggest municipal parks in the entire country. The whole thing is roughly 4,000 acres, but they've got the reservoir there, which is well over 1,000 acres. It's about 1,400 acres or so of just water. And so it's just surrounded by beautiful trees, no homes. So it's essentially a giant nature preserve, honestly. Tons of trails going through Eagle Creek Park, and you can really be there and feel like you are extremely far away from Indianapolis or Brownsburg. So Eagle Creek Park in Indianapolis, it's just that Brownsburg is very close to it, exceptionally close. And I think it's just one of the advantages to living there. You could get a season park pass. That way you could just come in and out for an annual fee, and you can do so much there in Eagle Creek Park. It is really a super neat place. So definitely a great escape from Indianapolis or even Brownsburg itself, even though Brownsburg isn't terribly busy or super happening, which makes it very, very attractive to a lot of people, but an awesome escape to get to there in Eagle Creek Park. And of course, anybody that lives all across the Indy Metro, go to Eagle Creek Park. I've been there a million times to run on the trails there and also to bike ride. Used to do triathlons quite a bit, and so do a lot of road cycling in there because it's a little bit hilly actually through there. In fact, it has a couple of really good hills, and we bike through there quite a bit just to get some of that training in. And they would have some triathlons there and swim in the reservoir and then get out and bike through the park and out of the park and into Indianapolis, and then you come back through there and run through the park too. So a cool place, definitely, and a wild escape, definitely, from the city, and just so incredibly close to Brownsburg. Super big advantage. Now, number 4 on the list, I would call this one more of a stretch. And the only reason I would say that it's a stretch is because there isn't a whole lot there, but you still have plenty nearby that you could go to for what you need. And this would be McCordsville over on the east side of Indianapolis. So McCordsville is almost now a suburb of Fishers. You know, it's of course a suburb of Indianapolis, definitely, but it's very, very close to Fishers, and McCordsville is very small. So there's less than 10,000 people in McCordsville, but it's growing. There's a lot of new construction out that way. Population is spreading out that way, so it's not gonna stay super small forever. But if you get into McCordsville, there's a little downtown area, but it is very small, very sparse, not a whole lot going on there. A couple of neat spots like Scarlet Lane Brewery, which is there right now, and Trax Barbecue, but if you're driving right through the downtown area, you would never even see them. You have to get off the road to get back there by the train tracks that run along the downtown area of McCordsville, but not a whole lot else there. So when you drive through McCordsville, it's just mostly white residential, honestly. Mostly residential, except for a Meijer, which you have in McCordsville, but most people think that Meijer is actually in Indianapolis, but truly it has a McCordsville address. So a Meijer, if you're not familiar with it, it's kind of like a super Target or super Walmart. It has a department store, clothing, but also a huge grocery store inside of it as well. But outside of that, not much else in McCordsville. A couple little restaurants, things like that, gas stations, but that's about it. You're gonna have to go up into Fishers or over in Indianapolis or Lawrence nearby in order to get much more than that. But again, that's why people like McCordsville, because it's super quiet and it does feel like you're living out in your own community away from everything else, but you're really not that far from everything else. So a lot of people will have that particular preference, and maybe Brownsburg or Avon or Zionsville, they're just a little bit too happening for them. Or the location, of course, isn't all that good. Those are all the way over on the west side, and McCordsville is on that east side of Indianapolis. And our last one. So this last one, I wouldn't call it a stretch, but it's certainly the furthest from Indianapolis, and that's Greenfield, Indiana. But this is something that is changing every single year. So Greenfield is a small city. If you go east on I-70, east of Indianapolis, you will eventually get to Greenfield. So there's a couple of exits that you can take off 70 to get into Greenfield, but State Road 9 is the one that pierces Greenfield right down the center, and you can take State Road 9 right into downtown Greenfield. And Greenfield is less than 30,000 people, so it's kind of that same size, pretty close to it, of Zionsville and Brownsburg, and it has pretty much everything that you're ever going to need. So it has restaurants. It doesn't have super high-end restaurants, anything like that. You're gonna have to travel in Indianapolis or someplace else to get to those, but it has restaurants, it has fast food, of course, and it has shopping. It has almost everything you possibly could need, like a Walmart. It doesn't have a Target, but maybe one day it will. But it has a downtown area that is super, super cool, an old downtown square, or the courthouse in the center, and it's out in Hancock County, kind of like McCordsville is, which is a county that's just not incredibly populated. When you look at Hancock County as a whole, there's only about 77,000 people there. And if you look at Hamilton County on the north side, which is definitely the most popular area for the suburbs, where Carmel and Fishers, Noblesville, and Westfield are located, there's close to 350,000 people there. So Hancock County just in general is not exceptionally crowded, not exceptionally dense, and Greenfield would be the biggest city in that county. So you can kind of live on the outskirts of Greenfield and really feel like you live in rural Indiana or kind of out there, but you're not. You're under 30 minutes to get to Indianapolis down 70, and it's a super easy drive. Or you can just come right into Greenfield, a couple minute drive, and get your grocery store, get the Walmart, get food, whatever it is that you want to get. Greenfield is probably going to have at least something similar to what you need. Very, very easy to live in Hancock County and Greenfield, and a lot of people like that. A lot of people want that particular kind of lifestyle. So there you have it. There are 5 places to consider if you want to be attached to Indianapolis or a couple of the bigger suburbs, but want to feel like you're not quite attached. So some places where everything might be a little bit slower, your overall lifestyle. If you have questions about those places that we covered here in this video at all, or any other place in Indianapolis or the surrounding metro, then make sure that you reach out. And until the next one, we'll see you later.